It began as a hushed conversation behind Kensington Palace walls that aides tried to downplay and courtiers quickly silenced. But the look on Princess Catherine's face as she exited that private meeting said everything the palace couldn't. Something was wrong. And this time, the concern centered on Catherine herself. What began as quiet speculation soon erupted into a royal crisis. Prince William could no longer keep hidden. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the signs were easy to dismiss. Royal schedules change. Private meetings happen every day. Senior members of the monarchy frequently consult advisors, doctors, and security officials without attracting much attention. Yet this situation felt different. Those who worked within the royal household reportedly noticed it almost immediately. A level of urgency had quietly settled over Kensington Palace, creating an atmosphere that insiders later described as unusually tense. Doors that normally opened freely for staff remained closed. Conversations stopped abruptly when unfamiliar faces entered a room. Questions were met with polite but firm silence. According to reports circulating among royal correspondents, Catherine and Prince William had been called into a private meeting with senior medical specialists. No official announcement followed. No clarification emerged from palace communications teams. Instead, an unusual curtain of secrecy descended over the situation. That silence alone was enough to trigger concern among those who closely follow the royal family. After all, the palace had spent years perfecting the art of controlled communication. When information suddenly disappeared, people naturally began asking why. What unsettled observers even more was Catherine's behavior in the days that followed. The Princess of Wales, known for her composure under intense public scrutiny, reportedly began withdrawing from several personal commitments. Some engagements were quietly adjusted. Others disappeared from schedules altogether. While palace officials offered routine explanations, speculation continued to grow. The public had watched Catherine navigate enormous pressure throughout her royal life, and many sensed that this was not a routine adjustment. Something larger appeared to be unfolding behind closed doors. At the same time, Prince William seemed burdened by a weight he could not entirely conceal. During public appearances, royal watchers claimed they noticed subtle changes in his demeanor. There were moments when his focus appeared elsewhere, as though his mind remained occupied by concerns no official statement could address. Those close to the monarchy began whispering that the future king was facing a challenge far greater than the public understood. Meanwhile, strict instructions were reportedly issued to palace aides regarding confidentiality. Staff members who would normally brief trusted journalists remained unusually quiet. Questions from media organizations received carefully crafted responses that revealed almost nothing. The lack of information only fueled further speculation. Some insiders would later suggest that concerns surrounding Catherine's health had been developing quietly for weeks before the public became aware that anything was wrong. As rumors spread, members of the public began noticing small but significant details. Every canceled appearance generated fresh headlines. Every unanswered question created new theories. Every appearance by William seemed to intensify the mystery. What had started as scattered whispers was quickly evolving into a national conversation. The concern was no longer limited to palace corridors or media circles. It was spreading across the country, drawing attention from people who feared that a deeply personal struggle was unfolding within the royal family. Yet even as speculation intensified, the palace maintained its silence. No confirmation, no denial, only growing uncertainty. And behind that uncertainty stood Catherine and William, facing a reality far more serious than anyone outside those palace walls could fully understand. The public saw only fragments of the story. The truth remained hidden within confidential discussions, medical consultations, and private family conversations that would soon reshape everything. But what doctors reportedly revealed behind closed doors would soon force William into one of the most difficult decisions of his life. For months, the public saw smiles, waves, and carefully managed appearances. Behind those palace gates, however, a very different reality was unfolding. One that left senior royals confronting fears they had desperately hoped were behind them. The silence that surrounded Catherine's condition was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain. What had initially been treated as a private family matter was slowly transforming into something much larger, something that carried implications not only for the Princess of Wales but for the future stability of the monarchy itself. Behind closed doors, conversations grew longer, meetings became more frequent, The uncertainty that had first emerged during those confidential consultations was no longer fading away. Instead, it was deepening, creating a cloud of concern that seemed to follow every decision being made within the royal household. Reports began circulating that Catherine was undergoing additional testing and consultations with specialists. Official sources remained guarded, offering little beyond carefully measured statements. Yet the persistence of these reports suggested that the situation was more complex than many had originally assumed. The family was not reacting to a temporary setback. They were confronting questions that still lacked clear answers. And in moments like these, uncertainty can become more frightening than certainty itself. Those closest to Catherine reportedly found themselves adjusting to a new reality. Family schedules quietly shifted. Priorities changed. Commitments that once seemed important suddenly became secondary. The Wales family had spent years presenting an image of strength, stability, and confidence. Now they faced a challenge that could not be solved through preparation or careful planning. It demanded patience. It demanded resilience. Most of all, it demanded emotional strength during a period when fear threatened to overwhelm everyone involved. As concern continued to grow, Prince William's role began evolving in ways that few outside the family fully understood. The future king was no longer simply supporting his wife through a difficult period. According to those familiar with the situation, he was becoming increasingly involved in her daily care and well-being. Every decision carried weight. Every update mattered. Every day seemed capable of bringing either hope or heartbreak. The responsibilities of royal duty remained firmly on his shoulders, yet his focus was increasingly divided between the institution he was destined to lead and the woman he was determined to protect. The emotional strain on the family was becoming impossible to ignore. George, Charlotte, and Louis remained at the center of Catherine's concerns, even as she faced her own challenges. Like any parents confronting uncertainty, Catherine and William reportedly worked tirelessly to preserve a sense of normality for their children. But beneath that effort lay an undeniable reality. Children notice change. They sense tension. They recognize when the people they depend on are carrying burdens they cannot explain. Meanwhile, palace officials were quietly preparing for possibilities they hoped would never become necessary. Contingency discussions reportedly took place behind the scenes. Senior advisors evaluated schedules, responsibilities, and future commitments. These preparations were not admissions of defeat. They were reflections of the monarchy's determination to remain functional during moments of crisis. Yet the very existence of such discussions revealed how seriously the situation was being treated at the highest levels. Outside palace walls, public speculation reached new heights. Every absence fueled fresh theories. Every delayed appearance generated renewed concern. Social media became flooded with questions. Commentators searched for clues. Supporters expressed sympathy while critics demanded answers. The pressure was relentless. The palace could control official statements, but it could not control public curiosity. And with each passing week, that curiosity intensified. Yet amid all the speculation, one truth remained hidden beneath the headlines. This was not merely a story about medical appointments or canceled engagements. It was a story about a family confronting uncertainty while carrying the immense expectations of an entire nation. It was about fear, responsibility, and the painful realization that even those who appear strongest are not immune to life's most difficult challenges. And as concern continued to spread across the country, attention gradually began moving toward the person carrying much of that burden in silence. As concern intensified, attention quickly shifted from Catherine's condition to the man standing beside her through every uncertain moment. Those closest to Prince William noticed the change immediately. The future king was still carrying out his duties, but the confidence and ease that once defined him seemed replaced by something heavier, something impossible to hide forever. As questions surrounding Catherine's health continued to grow, attention naturally began shifting toward the man standing beside her. For years, William had been viewed as the steady figure preparing patiently for the enormous responsibilities that awaited him. He had weathered public scrutiny, family tensions, and the constant pressure that comes with life inside the monarchy. Yet this challenge felt profoundly different. This was not a constitutional debate or a public relations crisis. This was personal, painfully personal, and those who knew him best reportedly understood that he was carrying a burden unlike any he had faced before. Behind the carefully maintained structure of royal life, William found himself balancing two worlds that were increasingly difficult to separate. On one side stood his duty to the crown, an obligation that had shaped his entire life. On the other stood his role as a husband and father, a responsibility that demanded his heart, his energy, and his complete attention. The challenge was not choosing one over the other. The challenge was finding a way to honor both, while the uncertainty surrounding Catherine continued to cast a shadow over everything. Those close to the family reportedly noticed that William's priorities had quietly shifted. Public engagement still took place. Official meetings continued. The machinery of royal life moved forward. Yet beneath that outward routine was a man whose thoughts were constantly returning to Catherine and the children. Every update regarding her condition carried enormous emotional weight. Every day brought new hopes and new fears. Every decision seemed tied to questions that remained unanswered. At the center of those concerns were George, Charlotte, and Louis. More than anything else, William reportedly worried about how the situation was affecting them. The children had grown up surrounded by extraordinary privilege, but they were still children confronting uncertainty within their own family. Protecting them became one of his most important priorities. Sources close to royal circles suggested that William devoted increasing amounts of time to ensuring stability at home, determined to shield them from the pressures and speculations swirling around their parents. Yet even as he focused on his family, the expectations attached to his future role never disappeared. In many ways, they intensified. The monarchy depends on continuity. It depends on visible leadership. It depends on the reassurance that someone are prepared to step forward when circumstances demand it. As concerns about both Catherine and King Charles continued dominating headlines, many began looking toward William as the figure who would eventually carry the institution through an uncertain period. That growing expectation created its own form of pressure, one that followed him into every meeting, every appearance, and every public engagement. Observers began noticing subtle signs of strain. Nothing dramatic, nothing openly acknowledged, but enough to spark discussion among those who closely follow the royal family. The future king appeared more serious, more reflective. At times, there seemed to be a quiet exhaustion beneath the professionalism that had long defined him. It was the look of someone attempting to remain strong for everyone else while privately carrying fears he could not fully share. Royal insiders increasingly discussed William's expanding responsibilities. Some compared the moment to challenges faced by previous generations of the monarchy. Others pointed to the immense emotional burden that comes with balancing public duty and private hardship. History had shown that royal families are not immune to suffering. Titles may bring influence, wealth, and prestige, but they offer no protection from uncertainty, illness, or fear. In that sense, William's struggle echoed challenges that had tested members of the royal family for decades. But what made this period especially difficult was the feeling that events were moving faster than anyone expected. The questions surrounding Catherine remained unresolved. Public speculation showed no signs of slowing. Expectations continued rising. And through it all, William remained caught between the demands of his future and the needs of the people he loved most. He continued moving forward because he had no alternative. Yet with each passing day, the weight on his shoulders seemed to grow heavier. And while much of the public focused on William's determination to support Catherine through this difficult chapter, developments were quietly unfolding elsewhere within the palace. Conversations were taking place behind closed doors. Preparations were being made. Decisions were being considered. What began as a personal family crisis was gradually expanding into something that could affect the institution itself. Yet even as William fought to hold everything together, another challenge was quietly emerging within the royal institution itself. As rumors spread beyond palace walls, senior royal officials found themselves confronting a familiar dilemma: protect privacy or prepare the nation for difficult news. Neither option came without consequences. The growing concern surrounding Catherine's condition was no longer confined to private discussions among family members and trusted advisors. What had begun as a carefully guarded matter was steadily evolving into a challenge that touched every corner of the royal institution. Inside the palace, the atmosphere had changed. The conversations were no longer focused solely on medical updates or family well-being. They had expanded into something far broader. Officials were now wrestling with a question that has haunted royal households for generations. How much should the public be told, and when? As William struggled to balance his responsibilities as a husband, father, and future king, senior palace advisors reportedly found themselves pulled into a series of increasingly urgent discussions. The stakes were enormous. Every decision carried consequences. A statement released too early could create unnecessary panic. A statement released too late could fuel accusations of secrecy and erode public trust. There was no perfect solution, only difficult choices and uncertain outcomes. According to royal insiders, emergency conversations began taking place among some of the monarchy's most experienced advisors. These were not routine meetings. They were strategic discussions focused on managing a situation that appeared to be changing with each passing week. Communication teams evaluated possible scenarios. Senior officials reviewed contingency plans. Trusted advisors examined how previous royal health crises had been handled, searching for lessons that might guide them through another period of uncertainty. At the same time, the pressure from the media continued intensifying. Journalists who had spent years covering the royal family sensed that something significant was unfolding behind closed doors. Questions multiplied. Requests for clarification increased. Every cancelled engagement, every altered schedule, and every carefully worded palace statement became the subject of intense scrutiny. News organizations were determined to uncover the truth, while palace officials remained equally determined to protect the family's privacy for as long as possible. That tension created a growing conflict behind the scenes. On one side stood those who believed transparency would ultimately strengthen public confidence. On the other stood those who argued that Catherine deserved the time and space to confront her health challenges without constant public intrusion. Neither position was entirely wrong. Both were rooted in genuine concern. Yet the longer the uncertainty continued, the more difficult it became to maintain a united approach. Senior members of the royal family were reportedly briefed on developments as discussions intensified. The situation had progressed beyond a private family matter. It now carried implications for the institution itself. Questions were being raised about future responsibilities, public expectations, and how the monarchy could maintain stability during a period of profound uncertainty. The deeper officials looked into those questions, the clearer it became that there were no easy answers waiting to be found. Many observers began drawing comparisons to previous moments when royal health concerns had dominated public attention. History offered examples of both successful communication and damaging silence. Palace's officials understood those lessons all too well. The monarchy had survived crises before, but every generation faced its own unique challenges. What worked in the past might not work now. Public expectations had changed. Information traveled faster than ever. Speculation spread globally within minutes. The old methods of controlling narratives no longer carried the same power they once did. Meanwhile, internal debates reportedly became increasingly intense. Some advisors believed an announcement would eventually become unavoidable. Others urged patience, insisting that premature disclosures could create even greater complications. The discussion stretched on as uncertainty continued hanging over every decision. Behind closed doors, officials weighed risks against responsibilities, privacy against transparency, and compassion against public accountability. Outside the palace, the atmosphere was becoming equally tense. Public concern continued growing. Supporters demanded reassurance. Critics demanded clarity. Rumors multiplied faster than facts. The silence that had once protected Catherine was now creating its own storm, and with each passing day, the pressure grew harder to contain. Everyone seemed to sense that a decisive moment was approaching. The machinery of the monarchy was preparing for something significant, even if nobody yet knew exactly when that moment would arrive. And despite all the meetings, preparations, and carefully constructed plans, one issue remained unresolved. The advisors could debate strategy. The media could continue asking questions. The public could speculate endlessly. Yet the answer everyone sought remained locked behind palace walls. But the biggest question remained unanswered. When would the public finally hear the truth? Then came the moment many had feared. After weeks of silence, uncertainty, and mounting speculation, Prince William stepped forward with a message that instantly sent shockwaves across Britain and beyond. For weeks, questions had lingered unanswered. Rumors had multiplied. The palace had maintained its careful silence while concerns surrounding Catherine continued to grow. Yet there comes a point in every crisis when silence can no longer carry the weight of reality. For William, that moment had finally arrived. The pressure from the public, the media, and the sheer emotional burden of uncertainty had reached a level that could no longer be ignored. The nation had been waiting for answers, and now those answers were about to arrive. What made the moment so significant was not simply the information being shared. It was the person delivering it. William had spent much of this difficult period protecting his family from the relentless attention that accompanies royal life. He had carried private fears behind public duty. He had stood beside Catherine through every challenge while attempting to maintain stability for their children and reassurance for the country. Now he was stepping forward, not merely as a husband, but as the future king, confronting a painful reality before millions of people. When confirmation of Catherine's health struggle finally emerged, the reaction was immediate and profound. The uncertainty that had fueled endless speculation was suddenly replaced by a wave of emotion that swept across the United Kingdom. For many, the announcement transformed distant concern into something deeply personal. Catherine had become one of the most admired members of the royal family, respected not only for her position but for her dedication, composure, and ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Hearing that she was facing a serious health challenge struck an emotional chord that few could ignore. Almost instantly, expressions of support began pouring in from every direction. Political leaders, public figures, charitable organizations, and ordinary citizens united around a common message of encouragement. The response transcended political divisions and social differences. In a time often marked by disagreement, Catherine's struggle created a rare moment of collective sympathy. Millions of people who had never met her felt connected to her battle because they recognized something universal within it: the fear, uncertainty, and vulnerability that accompany any serious health crisis. The reaction extended far beyond Britain's borders. Messages of support arrived from around the world. International leaders offered their well wishes. Public figures expressed admiration for Catherine's courage. Global media organizations devoted extensive coverage to the announcement, transforming what had once been a private family matter into an international story. The world's attention focused squarely on the Princess of Wales and the family standing beside her. Meanwhile, social media erupted with activity unlike anything seen during the weeks of speculation. Timelines became flooded with messages of support. Discussions spread across platforms at extraordinary speed. News coverage dominated headlines. Every detail was analyzed. Every statement was examined. Yet amid the endless commentary, one theme consistently emerged above all others: admiration for Catherine's strength. People were not simply reacting to the news itself. They were responding to the grace with which she had confronted the situation. Throughout the uncertainty, Catherine had maintained dignity despite immense pressure. She had endured public speculation while privately facing challenges most people could scarcely imagine. That resilience became a source of inspiration for many who saw reflections of their own struggles within her story. But perhaps the most powerful impact came from William's words themselves. Beyond the official nature of the announcement, there was a sense of genuine emotion that resonated deeply with the public. The future king was no longer speaking only as a senior royal. He was speaking as a husband, watching someone he loved face an uncertain battle. That human element cut through the formality of palace communications and reminded people that behind every royal title stands a family confronting the same fears and heartbreaks experienced by countless others. The announcement answered many questions, but it also marked the beginning of an entirely new chapter. Public speculation had finally been replaced by truth. Yet truth brought its own challenges. The road ahead remained uncertain. Support could provide comfort, but it could not fight the battle that still lay ahead. While the world absorbed the devastating news and rallied around Catherine, she herself was already looking beyond the announcement toward the difficult journey that awaited her. Yet, while the world focused on the heartbreaking announcements, Catherine herself was already preparing for the battle ahead. Throughout her years in the royal spotlight, Catherine had built a reputation for grace under pressure. Now she faced perhaps the greatest test of her life, and those closest to her say she refused to surrender to fear. The public announcement had changed everything. The uncertainty that once existed behind palace walls was now known around the world. Millions of people understood that Catherine was facing a serious personal challenge, and with that understanding came an outpouring of support, unlike anything seen during the previous weeks of speculation. Yet while headlines focused on the emotional impact of the revelation, those closest to Catherine reportedly witnessed something remarkable. Rather than allowing fear to define her future, she made a decision that would shape everything that followed. She chose determination. For years, Catherine had been admired for her composure during moments of pressure. Public scrutiny, endless expectations, and the demands of royal life had tested her countless times. Yet this challenge was unlike any she had encountered before. There were no protocols for emotional uncertainty, no royal traditions capable of removing fear, no title powerful enough to shield her from the reality she now faced. And yet, according to those familiar with the situation, Catherine approached this chapter with the same quiet strength that had defined her entire journey. The days following the announcement reportedly became focused on one goal above all others: recovery. Medical consultations continued. Treatment plans moved forward. Difficult conversations took place. Yet beneath every decision was an unwavering determination to keep moving ahead. Those closest to her described a woman who understood the seriousness of the challenge before her, but refused to be consumed by it. The road ahead was uncertain, but uncertainty did not mean surrender. It meant resilience. It meant persistence. It meant finding strength even when circumstances offered every reason to feel overwhelmed. Throughout this period, family became an essential source of support. William remained by her side, carrying the same responsibilities that had weighed heavily on him for months. Yet something powerful appeared to emerge from the crisis itself. Rather than weakening their partnership, the struggle seemed to strengthen it. The pressures they faced together deepened the bond that had already endured years of public attention and private challenges. They were no longer simply navigating royal responsibilities. They were confronting one of life's most difficult battles as a united team. Close friends and trusted relatives reportedly formed a protective circle around the family. In moments of uncertainty, that support became invaluable. Encouragement came not only through words but through presence, loyalty, and the quiet reassurance that Catherine would not face this journey alone. While public attention remained intense, those personal connections provided a foundation of stability during an otherwise turbulent period. At the center of Catherine's determination remained her children. George, Charlotte, and Louis continued to be her greatest priority. Despite the challenges unfolding around them, she reportedly remained focused on preserving a sense of normality within their lives. The world saw headlines and public statements. Catherine saw 3 children who needed reassurance, stability, and love. That responsibility became a powerful source of motivation, giving her another reason to face each day with courage. As news of her resilience spread, public admiration only grew stronger. Many people found inspiration in the way she handled adversity. Supporters who had followed her journey for years expressed renewed respect for her character. Others who had never paid close attention to royal affairs suddenly found themselves moved by her determination. Her struggle transcended royal status because it reflected something universally human: the choice to confront fear rather than allow fear to take control. At the same time, Catherine's leadership began receiving greater recognition. For years, much of the attention surrounding the monarchy focused on titles, ceremonies, and constitutional roles. Now, many people were seeing something different. They were seeing a woman whose strength emerged most clearly during adversity. They were seeing someone capable of providing calm during uncertainty and hope during moments of fear. In many ways, the crisis revealed qualities that could not be measured by royal rank alone. Yet even as Catherine focused on recovery, events around her continued evolving. The personal battle she faced was already creating broader consequences for the institution she represented. Questions about leadership, responsibility, and the future of the monarchy were becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. What had begun as a private health struggle was now influencing conversations at the highest levels of royal life. As Catherine focused on recovery, the crisis began reshaping the future of the monarchy itself. Health crises have always tested royal families, but this moment felt different. With King Charles facing his own challenges and Catherine fighting her personal battle, the future suddenly seemed more uncertain than ever. What had started as a private struggle was now evolving into something far larger. The story was no longer focused solely on Catherine's recovery or William's determination to support his family. It had become a moment of reckoning for the monarchy itself. Across Britain, people were beginning to ask difficult questions about the future. The institution had weathered countless storms throughout its history, but this particular chapter carried a unique sense of uncertainty. For the first time in years, multiple generations of the royal family appeared to be confronting serious challenges at the same moment. King Charles was continuing to manage his own health concerns, while fulfilling the immense responsibilities of the crown. Catherine was focused on recovery and treatment. Meanwhile, William found himself standing at the center of a rapidly changing landscape. The future king had spent much of his life preparing for leadership, but preparation and reality are rarely the same thing. Circumstances were forcing him to shoulder greater responsibilities sooner than many had anticipated. Each passing week seemed to bring new expectations, new obligations, and new reminders that the future was approaching faster than anyone had expected. As public attention intensified, William's role within the monarchy appeared to expand naturally. Supporters increasingly looked to him as a symbol of continuity during an uncertain period. His actions carried greater significance. His decisions attracted greater scrutiny. Even routine engagements seemed to take on additional meaning because people were no longer simply observing a prince. They were observing the man who would one day become king while navigating one of the most challenging periods of his personal life. That reality sparked growing concern among many members of the public. Stability has always been one of the monarchy's greatest strengths. The institution survives because it projects continuity through moments of national and personal difficulty. Yet uncertainty surrounding both Charles and Catherine inevitably led some observers to wonder what the coming years might look like. Questions that once belonged only to constitutional experts suddenly entered everyday conversations. What would happen if responsibilities continued shifting? How would the royal family adapt to these changing circumstances? And who would emerge as the central figure guiding the institution forward? Behind palace walls, those concerns reportedly translated into increased responsibilities for senior royals. More engagements needed to be covered. More duties required attention. More public reassurance was necessary. The burden was no longer carried by a single individual. It was being shared across an institutions attempting to maintain confidence, while facing challenges that could not simply be postponed or ignored. Many royal observers began describing the moment as historically significant, not because of any single event, but because of the convergence of so many events happening at once. History often turns on unexpected moments. Rarely do people recognize them while they are unfolding. Yet there was a growing sense that this period would eventually be remembered as a defining chapter in the story of the modern monarchy. Future generations might look back on these months as the point when old assumptions began giving way to a new reality. Amid that uncertainty, support for William and Catherine continued growing stronger. Public admiration evolved into something deeper. It became a sense of shared investment in their future. People who had watched the couple for years now saw them confronting extraordinary challenges with resilience and dignity. That admiration helped strengthen the bond between the Wales family and the public during a period when encouragement was desperately needed. Yet despite the growing support, the questions remained. What would recovery ultimately look like? How would the monarchy adapt to the pressures it now faced? Would this difficult chapter strengthen the institution or fundamentally reshape it? No one could answer those questions with certainty. The future remained unwritten, hanging somewhere between hope and uncertainty. What was clear, however, was that this story had not yet reached its conclusion. The struggles, sacrifices, and emotional battles that had defined recent months were already leaving a lasting mark on the monarchy. The consequences would extend far beyond headlines and public statements. They would influence relationships, responsibilities, and perhaps even the future direction of the crown itself. And as Britain watched anxiously, one final chapter in this unfolding story began to take shape. In times of crisis, royal titles and palace walls mean very little. What truly matters is the strength of the people behind them. And few stories have revealed that truth more clearly than Cather's battle and William's unwavering devotion. As this extraordinary chapter continued to unfold, one truth became impossible to ignore. Beneath the ceremonies, traditions, and centuries of royal history stood a family confronting a challenge that millions of people around the world could understand. Illness does not recognize titles. Fear does not care about status. Uncertainty does not pause simply because someone lives within palace walls. And perhaps that is why Catherine's journey resonated so deeply with so many people. It reminded the public that behind every royal role is a human being facing struggles, hopes, and fears just like everyone else. Throughout this difficult period, Catherine demonstrated a remarkable level of courage. Not the dramatic kind often celebrated in headlines, but a quieter, more enduring form of strength. It was the courage required to wake up each day and keep moving forward despite uncertainty. It was the determination to focus on recovery while carrying the emotional weight of public attention. It was the resilience to face challenges privately while millions watched from afar. That strength became one of the defining stories of the crisis itself. At the same time, William's role evolved into something that extended far beyond his future responsibilities as king. Throughout months of uncertainty, he remained a constant source of support for Catherine and their children. He balanced the demands of public duty with the responsibilities of family life. He carried expectations placed upon him by history, while navigating deeply personal challenges in the present. The contrast was striking. On one side stood the future monarch preparing for enormous responsibilities. On the other stood a husband determined to stand beside the woman he loved through one of the most difficult periods of her life. In many ways, it was that devotion that captured the public's admiration most powerfully. The response from across Britain reflected something equally remarkable. During a time often characterized by division and disagreement, support for Catherine created a rare sense of unity. Messages of encouragement arrived from every corner of society. People who rarely agreed on anything found common ground in their hope for her recovery. Communities rallied around the family. Public figures expressed support. Ordinary citizens shared personal stories of resilience and perseverance. The crisis became more than a royal story. It became a reminder of the compassion people are capable of showing during difficult times. Perhaps one of the most important lessons to emerge from this chapter was the realization that strength is not measured by the absence of struggle. Strength is measured by how people respond when struggle arrives. Catherine's journey revealed that courage is often found in persistence rather than perfection. William's example demonstrated that leadership begins with loyalty and responsibility. Together, they showed that even during moments of uncertainty, dignity and determination can provide a path forward. The Wales family's bond also emerged stronger through adversity. Challenges that might have weakened others appeared to reinforce the connections, holding them together. Their story became one of partnership, resilience, and shared purpose. It reminded many people that families often discover their greatest strengths during their most difficult moments. While public attention focused on the uncertainty surrounding the future, the foundation of support within the family itself remained remarkably steady. Looking ahead, hope gradually began replacing fear. Recovery remained a journey rather than a destination. Questions still existed. Challenges still lay ahead. Yet there was also growing confidence that brighter days would eventually return. The public had witnessed resilience. They had witnessed determination. And they had witnessed a family refusing to be defined by adversity. In the end, the legacy of this chapter may not be remembered solely for the health crisis that triggered it. Instead, it may be remembered for the example it provided. An example of courage under pressure. An example of devotion during uncertainty. An example of duty carried with grace even when circumstances became overwhelming. Long after the headlines fade and the speculation disappears, those qualities will remain. Because while health challenges may test even the strongest families, the story unfolding inside Kensington Palace proves that resilience, love, and duty remain the most powerful forces of all. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.